The one
One,
and only
two,
knitting
three.
tutorial for you to. Hi friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel Hobby Libby. My name is Libby. Very nice to see you again. So knitting is one of my many hobbies and I approach knitting with a modern twist. As promised in my last video, I'm bringing you the tutorial video number 1. In this video, I'm gonna show you step by step how to master the 11 essential techniques for complete beginners to knit my white bow sweater or any other sweaters you have your eyes on. So, my knitted friends, look no further. You found the one and only knitting tutorial for you to jumpstart your knitting journey. So, I gave a long and hard thought on how to make this video tutorial easy for you guys to understand and follow. I reflected on how I started learning to knit and the self-learning process I went through, the questions that I had, the researches that I did, and the difficulties I have overcome. And I came up with this. Can you guess what it is? It looks very interesting. This is by no means designed. I encapsulate 9 essential knitting techniques to knit any sweater in this swatch, and this is a byproduct of me demonstrating the knitting techniques step by step. And by the end of the demonstrating, and I got this. What an amazing surprise. Free creations are so much fun. There are total 11 essential techniques, and this one has 9 techniques, and for the remaining 2 techniques I'm gonna show you in different materials. So I want to mention that I learned most of my knitting skills from researching and watching video tutorials in Mandarin, which is my native language. So I referred to this Vogue knitting book for English terminologies. I got this book 16 years ago when I was pregnant with my son. This book definitely has a story to tell, which I'll share in my future videos when the right scenarios comes by. So to be clear, I'm a right-hander and I knit in English method or American method, which means I hold the yarn with my right hand. So this came natural to me when I first started trying knitting as a 5-year-old little girl under the influence of my mom and my big sisters last century somewhere in China. I didn't know this is called the English method until I read this book. I thought everyone knitted this way because everyone around me knitted this way. So if you knit in continental way or German way, which means you hold the yarn with your left hand or you're a left-hander, I hope this video tutorial still help you in some sort of way, but at this point I can only demonstrate in English method. Traditionally, it would be taught from casting on. There are tons of methods to cast on, and usually involves a lot of maneuvers with fingers, which I found super confusing and hard to follow, still do. So I'd like to shuffle things a little bit. Here is the learning flow that I came up with. I'll divide the 11 essential techniques into 3 groups. The first one is 7 basic knitting stitches. The second is 2 basic shaping techniques. And the third group is 2 finishing techniques. For the 7 basic knitting stitches, I'll include knit and purl, which is a pair, cast on, 1 by 1 rib, increase and decrease stitches, and binding off. For the 2 basic shaping techniques, I'm gonna show you how to do curves and slopes. And for the 2 finishing techniques, I'm gonna show you how to connect pieces together and how to pick up stitches and continue knitting. So don't be overwhelmed by the numbers, you'll get it in no time, I promise. Okay, before we start the step-by-step tutorial, let's take a closer look of this demonstrating swatch. I listed all the skills here. Now I counted, it actually has 10 techniques packed in this swatch. So I listed the number in the order of the tutorial. Number 1 and number 2 is knit and purl. Number 3 is cast on. Number 4 is 1 by 1 rib. Number 5 is binding off. Number 6 is increasing stitches. Number 8 and number 7 is decreasing stitches. Number 8 is armhole shaping. Number 9 is shoulder seam shaping. And number 10 is neckline shaping. So in this tutorial, I'm going to cover 1 to 7. Sounds good? Okay, let's really get started. So first, basics of the basics, knit and purl. Knit and purl is the foundation of knitting. It's like your ABCs in English language or the bricks in your buildings. Knit and purl comes in a pair. It's called knit on one side and purl on the opposite side. So let's do this. As mentioned in my introduction, usually you would start knitting from casting on, but here I put knit and purl before casting on is because the casting on method I'm going to introduce will be built upon knitting stitches. The method I chose is easier for beginners to understand and follow. Okay, let's get started. First, you slip the first stitch off the needle. So this is a common practice when you're knitting because you don't want the edge to get too bulky, so you don't knit the first stitch. Okay, now let's go. Hold the working needle in your right hand, wrapping the yarn around your fingers. Insert the right needle from front to back into the first stitch on the left needle. Keep the right needle under the left needle and the yarn at the back. Wrap the yarn under and over the right needle in a clockwise motion. With the right needle, catch the yarn and pull it through the left stitch. Slip the left stitch off the left needle, leaving the newly formed stitch on the right needle. Okay, let's knit a couple of more stitches in normal speed. Repeat these steps in each subsequent stitch until all stitches have been worked from the left needle. One knit row has been completed. Now let's turn the piece over and you can see this is a purl stitch. The pattern is different. The purl stitch has a lot of bumps. Same thing as we did in the knitting side, we slipped the first stitch without knitting. Now let's start to purl. As with the knit stitch, you hold the working needle in your right hand and the needle with the stitches in your left hand. The yarn is held and manipulated with your right hand and is kept to the front of the work. Insert the right needle from back to front into the first stitch on the left needle. The right needle is now in front of the left needle and the yarn is at the front of the work. With your right index finger, wrap the yarn counterclockwise around the right needle. Draw the right needle and the yarn backwards through the stitch on the left needle, forming a loop on the right needle. Slip the stitch off the left needle. You have made one purl stitch. Now let's knit a couple of more purl stitches in normal speed. Repeat these steps in each subsequent stitch until all the stitches have been worked from the left needle. One purl row has been completed. Congratulations! You just learned how to knit and purl. Next, you can just keep knitting until you get your desired length. Now we know how to knit and purl. Let's learn how to do the easiest cast-on method. It's called cable cast-on, which forms a sturdy yet elastic edge perfect for ribbed edges. It doesn't involve confusing finger maneuvers, but a straightforward knit-on method, using the knit stitch you just learned. Let's do this. First, make 2 simple loops on your left needle. Insert the right needle between the 2 stitches on the left needle. Wrap the yarn around the right needle as if to knit, and pull the yarn through to make a new stitch. Place the new stitch on the left needle as shown. Repeat the process, always inserting the right needle in between the last 2 stitches on the left needle, and repeat, and you'll get your easiest knit on, cast on. Repeat the process till you get your desired number of stitches. Next up is 1x1 rib knit, usually used for bottoms, cuffs, and neckbands. Again, this is built upon the basics we just learned: 1 knit, 1 purl, and repeat. Let's do this. Since we already know how to do the knit and the purl, this 1x1 rib stitch is very easy to understand now. So what you do is you knit 1 and you purl 1, and then repeat, knit 1 and purl 1, and just keep going till you worked 1 row. Now you've finished 1 row, and you turn to the other side and start knitting again. And this time you're gonna follow the pattern. So if it's a knit stitch, you knit. It's a purl stitch, you purl. It's easy to tell between knit and a purl because the purl stitch has a bump on it, and the knit stitch is flat with a V shape. Continue knit, 1 purl. After you worked several rows, you can see the 1x1 rib pattern clearly. Repeat the process until you get your desired height of your rib. Bind off, which is to finish a knitting piece to prevent the knitting from unraveling. Again, there are many methods to bind off. Let's do the most beginner-friendly way, the basic knit bind off. It looks great with a firm and a neat braided edge. Let's go. Knit 2 stitches. Insert the left needle into the first stitch on the right needle. Pull this stitch over the second stitch and off the right needle. One stitch remains on the right needle as shown. Knit the next stitch. Repeat the process until you have bound off the required number of stitches. Once you reach the last stitch, just cut off the yarn and finish the loop. Okay, that's 5 out of 11 down. So I took off the bounded stitches that I just bounded to continue my demonstration. Next up, increase and decrease stitches. These 2 stitches are the foundation of pattern shaping. Increase means you add stitches to make the pattern larger, and decrease stitches to make the pattern smaller. The easiest application of these 2 stitches is to form sleeves like this. Let's do this. Here is a very simple way to increase stitches. First, you knit 2 stitches. And then, as if the third stitch is the stitch you're gonna increase, you just simple wrap over the yarn. You wrap over the yarn over your right needle, and you keep knitting. And now you've successfully added another stitch, which is the third stitch. When you reach to the other side, 2 stitches away, you want to add another stitch. It's the same thing. You wrap over the yarn and keep knitting, and you added another stitch, which is symmetrical. Now you've added 2 stitches for this row, 1 each side. Next, we turn over and purl as usual. When you hit the third stitch that we just added, you purl it as usual, as if it was a stitch. It's a little bit tricky, but you just do it the same way as you do other purl stitches. Once you hit the other stitches that we added, you purl as usual. Just purl. After knitting for 2 rows, the added stitches is not very noticeable from this pattern. So let me knit and purl another round, and I'll show you the pattern. Here you can clearly see that the added stitches, it has a V shape, it's expanded. Now I'm going to add another 2 stitches on this 4th row. So currently I'm adding stitches every 4 rows. I just want to show you what it looks like. So let's keep repeating. Now after I added 3 stitches on each side every 4 rows, now you can see the pattern clearly. It's enlarged on both sides. Usually this is used for sleeve patterns. And great! Next, we are gonna do decrease stitches. So decrease stitches is the opposite of adding increasing stitches. Basically, it's reducing the size of the pattern. And I'm gonna show you how to do it. On the purpose of demonstrating, I added more stitches. To be exact, 4 stitches each side, so I have more stitches to work on to show you better. Reducing stitches is straightforward. It's very straightforward as well. So you, again, it's the same thing. You knit 2 stitches, and then here we want to reduce stitches, which means 2 stitches will become 1. The simplest method is to knit 2 stitches together. So treat these 2 stitches as 1 stitch to knit. Use the same knitting method. This time just knit 2 stitches together. And just like that, you reduced 1 stitch. 2 become 1. Yeah, it looks a little bit hard, but actually it's not that hard. It's hard for me here is because the yarn that I choose is roving yarn. It's very bulky, and so if you use other yarns, it won't be as difficult. Next, you just keep knitting as usual until you get to the other side. To the other side, we are gonna reduce the stitch from the 4th stitch. So when you hit the 4th stitch, we're gonna reduce another stitch. Now we are at the 4th stitch from the edge. What we're gonna do is we're gonna knit these 2 stitches together. It's the same thing. So we are keeping things simple here. We do the same reducing stitches method, because there are a lot of different methods to reduce stitches, but since this is beginner tutorial, so we just stick with one method, just knit 2 as 1. And now we've successfully reduced another stitch and keep knitting. So next, I'm gonna just repeat the process several times. I'm gonna reduce 1 stitch on each side every 4 rows, and I'll show you the result. Okay, here we go. I reduced stitches, 3 stitches on each side every 4 rows, and now you can see that the pattern is decreasing and form a shape. Okay, that is 7 out of 11 down. How do you feel? Okay, my friends, I have a change of mind. I was going to pack the 11 knitting essential skills in one video, and now I realize that it would be too much information in one tutorial for you guys to follow. Let's take it easy and take a break. I covered 7 essential knitting stitches in this video as part 1, and will dedicate the part 2, the next video, to the 4 essential shaping and finishing knitting techniques. I highly recommend you start practicing these 7 knitting stitches because they are truly essential and the foundations of any knitting projects. With these 7 skills, you can achieve simple projects like scarf, headbands, blankets, like right now, even my white bow sweater or any other simple sweaters. So please pick up a needle and some yarn and start practicing step by step. You can do it and you'll love it. Also, it will be much easier for you to follow and master the remaining 4 knitting techniques in my next video. I hope you found it helpful or inspirational. Please let me know your questions and comments down below. I'd really love to hear from you. If you found my video interesting, please like, subscribe, and share with your knitting friends. Until next time, keep knitting. I'll see you soon. Bye!